Yeah, that is your responsibility. Maybe I have to ask question randomly. Hmm.
Might be someone will keep the video open and they'll just sleep, sir, just for
Ah,
attendance.
yeah, see, those who want to listen, they will listen, right? Even in the classroom also, they will
Yes, sir.
sleep. So we can't help.
But in the classroom, at
Sir,
least you will
some of
see,
my
no,
friends
sir.
don't have
You're
internet
sleeping.
connection, sir. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
don't have
yeah.
4G.
Few they
They
have a
can't
problem.
join.
So no, we know, no, those who have problem, they have shared. So
Yeah,
for
sir.
them, we will share this video. Okay.
Yeah.
So I
What
think we
about
will
attendance,
start.
sir?
Yeah.
What about attendance for them?
Attendance, if they tell they have problem, we can give later. Okay.
Yeah, okay, sir.
Like that.
Okay, sir.
Like that. Right. Yeah.
Fine,
At
fine.
least they can listen audio, I think. There is not a problem on the
Yes, sir.
phone. Yeah. Okay. Right. So we will start. So today I will be starting uh, the module 5 on heat exchanges. Okay. So we have covered module 1 and module 2 completely. So we will start with the module 5 today. So the contents, these are the contents of today's lecture. We will just go through the syllabus of module 5, what is there, then topic level outcomes, and today we will cover these three topics under heat exchanger. That is classification of heat exchangers. What do you mean by overall heat transfer coefficient? Okay, it's not overall heat transfer coefficient. I will correct it. And the last one is fouling factor. Okay, fouling factor. Right. So this is the syllabus of the module. If you see carefully in the syllabus, there are two units. One is a heat exchanger, and another one is heat transfer with phase change, that is boiling and condensation. Okay. So these are the two separate units. You may get question from both uh, heat exchanger and boiling and condensation. Okay, but you have a
Will they
choice.
mix it, sir?
No, no, there is a choice between
Oh,
these two. Because these two
okay.
are separate units.
Oh,
So we will first finish these heat exchangers. Okay. So later, if we get the time, we will go to the boiling and condensation after we complete 5 units. So under heat exchanger, we have the definition, classification of heat exchanger, application, and there are two important derivations. One is called LMTD method, and another one is effectiveness NTU method. So these two derivation, usually out of these two, any one derivation comes for your exam. Okay. So that is one thing. Analytical method is nothing but these two method. Then we have fouling factor, and same this analytical method we can also solve using uh, chart also. I will explain how to use the chart also there. Okay. Somebody is trying to join, I think. Yeah. Right. So then we have so the second unit we will cover later. That is what I told. Okay. Next, this is the topic level outcome. So at the end of this module, what you are going to learn. Okay, this is a very important one. So when the module ends, this question you have to ask yourself. So this is what we expect at the end of this topic. You will be able to explain various classification of heat exchangers. What are the different types of heat exchangers? Okay, then derive LMTD and effectiveness NTU relation. This is what I told. Two important derivation, right? Two important derivation. Then solve problems and provide solution for various problems. So these three are the outcomes for heat exchanger topic. And the last two outcomes are for the boiling and condensation. Okay, explain the physical phenomena of boiling and condensation and determine the heat transfer rate for boiling and condensation. So these are the 5 outcome for this module, entire module. Okay. So first we will focus on these three outcomes, right? So now we will start with the heat exchangers, right? What do you mean by a heat exchanger? As the name indicates, there is a heat exchange between what? So heat exchange is between two fluids. So generally we call these two fluids as one is a hot fluid and one is a cold fluid. Okay. So the definition goes like this: heat exchangers are devices that facilitates exchange of heat between two fluids that are at different temperatures. This is very important. Okay, whenever there is a temperature difference, then only heat transfer takes place. So out of two fluids, one will be at a higher temperature, we call it as hot fluid. Another will be at lower temperature, we call it as cold fluid. Okay,
Cool.
so while keeping them from mixing with each other. So generally in heat exchanger, hot and cold fluids are not allowed to mix. There is a wall in between. But there are some examples where there is a mixing also possible. We will see in the classification. But generally 90% of the heat exchanger, hot and cold fluids are separated by a wall. This is what definition says. Okay. So heat exchangers are very common. We use from our household to the industrial application. Okay. So all of you know, in our home we have a refrigeration system. It consists of condenser and evaporator, right? Then air conditioning system it is used, and then it is also used in chemical processing and in power production. We will see in detail what is that. Yeah. So in thermal power plants, for example, boilers are there, superheaters, steam condenser. These are the heat exchanger. Then we have refrigeration and air conditioning. That is a heat exchanger. In automobile, we have radiator. Okay, very simple example of a heat exchanger. Then it is used in chemical process industry. For example, if you go MCF, if you go MRPL, you can see a lot of heat exchangers of very big size. Then it is used in cryogenic industry. What do you mean by cryogenic? Anyone knows? Am I audible?
So
Yes,
the
sir.
liquid
Yes, sir.
is
Yes,
sir,
yes.
Yeah, where the gases are condensed into liquid. For example, you produce liquid nitrogen, liquid oxygen, all those things. Okay, so there you require heat exchangers. And finally, in research, I think you may be knowing about Stirling engine, right? In ATD, you have studied about this. Stirling engine uses air as a working medium.
Working play.
Actually, Stirling engine is more efficient than IC engine. Okay, but only problem is compressing and expanding the air. And Stirling engine, one of the very important part is regenerators. Okay, so entire success of Stirling engine depends upon these regenerators. So a lot of research is going on this regenerator, which is nothing but one of the heat exchanger. Okay, yes. So these are some of the application. Now you can see a car. This is nothing but the radiator. Then AC it is used. Then boiler it's shown here, and some chemical process industries also it is used. Right. This is further some more example. This is a boiler which is shown. It's called water tube boiler. It's also called shell and tube. You can see several tubes within which the water flows, and over the shell hot gases flow. Okay, and this is the typical example of the refrigerator which we have in our home. And you can see the back side there are a lot of pipes running. Correct. So this is nothing but the condenser part. Okay, so inside the condenser, hot refrigerant, the vapor refrigerant enters, and when it comes out, the refrigerant gets cooled. That is cooled by air outside. So you can see the cold air replaces warm rising air, cold air comes here and hot air comes out. So there is a heat exchange between a refrigerant and air. Okay, refrigerant and air. So that is example. So now we will go to the classification of heat exchangers. Classification. There are based on different category classifications are there. So we will see one by one. So you can see here one cooling tower is there. Another is a condenser. Right. Now the first classification is according to the type of energy exchange. Okay, what do you mean by this? According to the type of energy exchange we have, first one is called direct contact type. So as is shown in the cooling tower, in direct contact, hot fluid and cold fluid comes direct contact with each other. Okay, there is no separation of hot and cold fluid. For example, you can see here, the hot water is sprayed from the pipe and air comes from the bottom, air get mixed up with the water and it absorbs heat and hot air comes out at the top. Okay. This is called direct contact type. So both the fluids are in contact. Second one we have indirect contact type. So where hot and cold fluids are not in contact with each other. See, under this we have two types. One is called regenerative type, another one is called recuperative type. Okay. Now, what do you mean by regenerative and what do you mean by recuperative? Just we will see that. In regenerative type, see, hot and cold fluids flow alternately through a space containing solid particles or solid matrix. Okay. Now, for example, IC engine is one example of regenerator. Why I will tell. See, in the suction stroke, fresh air comes into the cylinder. Okay, there's a cold air. Then it is compressed. Then fuel is sprayed. Combustion happens. Then the air goes out. Okay. Now the IC engine, the inside cylinder acts like a medium where it absorbs the heat from the hot gas, and that heat absorbed by the cylinder is taken away by the cold water which is surrounding. Okay. So this IC engine, the cylinder acts like a solid particle. So, and the flow, hot fluid comes once and cold fluid goes out. So this is called regenerative type. That is also used in blast furnace. Okay, blast furnace. Now, another one is called recuperative type. Recuperative type are the most commonly used heat exchangers. For example, our car radiator, condenser, all these are recuperative type. So what is this recuperative type means? Here, flowing fluid exchanges heat. Here, both the fluids are flowing on either side of the dividing wall, and both hot and cold fluid are continuously flowing, and they are separated by a wall. During the flow, there is a heat exchange takes place. Okay, so here, what happens? There is a continuous heat exchange between hot and cold fluid. But in regenerative type, what happens? Once cold fluid comes, it takes away heat. That heat is absorbed by the solid particle, then that is absorbed by that is transferred to the another fluid. So here in regenerative type, flow is alternately, and here in recuperative type, flow is continuous. Okay, that is a common difference. But what you have to remember is most of the heat generators are recuperative type. For example, radiator, condenser, all these are recuperative. Regenerative types are not so common. Okay, very less. So these are direct type and indirect type, and regenerative and recuperative. Okay, yes. Now according to the construction, we have three types. One is a double pipe, then we have shell and tube, then compact. I have shown the figure. This is an example for a double pipe. So here what you can see, there are two pipes, a smaller pipe and a larger pipe. In between these two pipes, the fluid flows. Okay. And inside the smaller pipe, for example, hot fluid may be flowing. Outside that, cold fluid may be flowing. This is called double pipe or concentric tube type. Okay, this type of heat exchangers are mostly used in our laboratory or for research purpose. Okay, for example, if you see in our heat transfer lab, we have parallel flow and counter flow. Okay, that is a double pipe arrangement. Then shell and tube. Shell and tube type is most common. All the boilers, most of the boilers which we use in industry are shell and tube type. Okay, shell and tube type. You can see shell means there is a large cylinder. Inside the shell, there are lot of small pipes. Okay, flowing. So inside the pipe, some fluid is flowing. That is called tube fluid. And outside the tube, some fluid is flowing. That is called shell fluid. Okay, shell fluid and tube fluid. So this is the most common arrangement in industries which we use, right? And the last one is compact type. Compact types are used in what I called cryogenic industries. I told no, cryogenic industries, or in some of the power plants. Okay, what is the advantage in compact type is the surface area available is very high per unit volume. Okay, so large heat exchange can take place. This is one example of compact type. In compact type, you can have either plate type or fin type. Two types are there. Don't worry much about the compact type. What you have to know is double pipe and shell and tube type. Right. So are you listening, all of you? Okay, is it audible?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So this is according to the construction now. Now in shell and tube type, you have to remember is there is what is called single pass and double pass. Okay, I have shown here. The first sketch shows one shell, two tube pass. Means this is the shell, and there are two tubes available. Okay, this is called single pass because once the fluid comes in and goes out. And another arrangement is this one. Here we have single shell, but two shell and two tube passes. Okay, two or four. For example, see, first it goes and comes out, and then again it goes in. So there are two times two passes. This is called double pass. This is called single pass. Okay, this comes in your data handbook, so that's why I'm explaining this. You should know what is single pass and double pass. So in shell and tube heat exchanger, this type will come into picture. Okay, single pass and double pass. Right. The next consideration in classification is according to the direction. Yeah, according to the direction we have parallel flow, counter flow, and cross flow. So the first figure shows here is parallel flow. So can you tell why it is parallel flow? This is based on direction, hot fluid and cold fluid. Okay.
Yes, sir. Only in one direction.
Yeah, hot fluid and
X
cold
direction.
fluid both flows in a same direction. Okay, so therefore it is called parallel flow. This is the example for counter flow, second sketch. The direction of hot fluid and cold fluid, they are opposite to each other. Okay, they are opposite to each other. So therefore it is called counter flow. Somebody joined, I think. Yeah, that is called opposite flow. And the last one is cross flow. Last one is cross flow. What do you mean by cross flow? In cross flow, if you see the direction of both the fluid, see this is the first fluid. Here, one of the fluid is flowing between these plates. Another fluid is flowing inside the pipe. If you see the direction, it is perpendicular to each other. Correct? So here you have both the fluid unmixed, means this fluid is flowing in between the plates, so it is not mixed. Okay, this is also not mixed, but here the outer fluid, it is flowing over the plate, and there is no plate to separate. So here one fluid is mixed. This fluid is mixed. It is written mixed here. Here it is written unmixed, means it is flowing separately. Okay, here it is flowing over the plate. So this is about classification based on the direction. So we have parallel, counter, and cross. So cross means the direction is 90 degree to each other. Okay, yeah. So any doubt in this parallel flow, cross flow, and counter flow? Okay.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Yeah. Now, if I ask one question, car radiator is there, right? So it is which type of heat exchanger? All of you know about radiator. Is it parallel, counter, or cross?
Cross flow, sir. Cross flow.
Cross flow. Okay, it's not parallel or counter because the hot water coming from the engine or coolant, that is flowing inside the pipe, and air is flowing over the pipe in a
Yes, sir.
90 degree to that. So it is a cross flow heat exchanger. Okay, yeah. And the last one is about according to the state of the fluid. So according to the state, we have condenser and evaporator. Condenser and evaporator. So this is based on the state. Means if one of the fluid is condensing, we call it as condenser. Okay. If one of the fluid is boiling, we call it as evaporator. So the first figure shown, it is called condenser. Okay. Now what you have to observe is, while condensing, the temperature of the fluid will not change. Can you tell why the temperature doesn't change? What type of heat it is giving out? It is giving out latent heat, correct? No. For example, a steam is condensing at 1 bar. So what is the temperature while condensing at 1 bar? Can unmute mic and interact.
25 degrees Celsius.
No, at 1 bar, what is the condensing temperature? Atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure, yeah. 100 degree, right? Water boils at 100 degree.
100.
Correct. Even the steam condenses at 100. Correct. No, at 1 bar. 1 bar pressure.
Yes.
Right. So while condensing, the temperature will not change. Correct. So what you have to observe is, if you just see here in condensing, in the condenser, hot fluid is condensing because at higher temperature, and the temperature remains same. It gives away latent heat, and cold fluid will absorb the heat, so its temperature goes up. Okay, so that is called condenser. Then what is evaporator? For example, evaporator is there in our refrigeration, correct? No, the evaporator. So in evaporator, the refrigerant, which is the liquid, which is at liquid state, comes into the evaporator, and it absorbs heat from the evaporator, and it becomes vapor. Correct, no? So in evaporator, the boiling fluid, it absorbs heat from the hot fluid, and it converts its state from liquid to vapor. And while boiling, what you have to understand is its temperature will not change. It will be constant. It is absorbing only latent heat. So the temperature of hot fluid drops. It gives away its heat. That heat is absorbed by the boiling fluid. It's called boiler. And in condenser, the hot fluid is condenser. It is giving away latent heat that is absorbed by the cold fluid. Okay. So this is according to the state of fluid. So is it clear? Condenser and evaporator.
Yes, sir.
So this sketch you have to remember. This is called temperature variation, right? So similarly for the hot fluid, parallel and counter, you can see here, right? Here, hot fluid temperature drops, cold fluid temperature increases. But here, one of the fluid temperature remains constant, which is which depends upon boiler or condenser. Okay, so these are classification of different heat exchangers. So we have discussed now so far. The first classification is direct or indirect. Okay, in that we have regenerative type and recuperative type. Recuperative type are the most common type of heat exchanger used. And what you have to remember is, in recuperative, heat exchange is continuous between hot and cold fluid and separated by a wall. In regenerative type, heat exchange is periodic or intermittent. Okay, once hot fluid comes, it gives away the heat that is absorbed by the solid particle, then cold fluid will absorb that heat, right? Then we have, according to the construction, double pipe, shell and tube, compact, so that we have understood. Then in shell and tube we have single and double pass, and according to the direction we have parallel, counter, cross, and finally according to the state we have condenser and evaporator. Okay, see, all these classification are very important, because when we solve problem, the first step is to identify what type of heat exchanger. Okay, and also we have to use the data handbook, so we should know which equation to use. That is based upon the classification, right? So next we will go on to the heat transfer coefficient, right? Now what is this heat transfer coefficient? So before that we will go through this equation. Now how to find out heat transfer? How much heat has been transferred between hot fluid and cold fluid? That is given by this equation. Okay. Now the first equation will give you mCp delta T. This is the heat lost by the hot fluid, correct? mH Cph Th1 minus Th2. And that is also equal to heat absorbed by the cold fluid. So if we consider there is no heat loss, in ideal condition, heat given away by the hot fluid must be equal to heat absorbed by the cold fluid, correct? So therefore, mCp, so you understood, no? This is the basic equation. Here, Cph is specific heat of hot fluid, Cpc is specific heat of cold fluid. Okay, Th1 and Th2 are the temperature of hot fluid at inlet and outlet. Tc2 and Tc1 are the temperature of the cold fluid at outlet and inlet. Now I can write this mH and Cph, I can replace by this term called Ch, and mC Cpc can be replaced by the term Cc. So therefore, CH and CC are called capacity rates. Okay. So if you have the notes, please write down these equations. Okay, or later also you can write down. Right. So this is clear. Okay. Now, before I go into that, if I use only these two equation, uh, can we find out anything about heat exchanger? Anything about the design of heat exchanger? From this we cannot find out. Correct. So therefore, this equation alone is not sufficient. Therefore, we use another equation. This is a very important equation. So you can write down this. That is Q is equal to U into A into delta Tm. So where Q is nothing but the rate of heat exchange between hot and cold fluid, that is given by U means overall heat transfer coefficient. A is surface area. So this is where the design of heat exchanger comes. So what is the surface area of heat exchange between two medium? A, and delta Tm. Delta Tm is nothing but mean temperature difference between hot and cold fluid. This delta Tm is also called as log mean temperature difference. Okay, so we will see why it is log mean temperature difference in the derivation part. So clear? Any doubt in this overall heat transfer coefficient? Okay. So you can hear me, right? Hello?
Hello. Yes, sir. We can hear.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Or somebody is joining still. Okay. Now, so any doubt in this equation? So these three equations are very important for us.
So that U is a new term, right?
U we have studied in the first unit, correct? No, overall heat transfer coefficient.
Yes, sir.
U-
Yes.
UA,
Ah, yes.
correct? No, so same term is used here. Okay, so that U for a plane wall, it is only one term, one U. But for a cylinder and sphere, we have UI and U naught.
Okay.
So this is already studied. Somebody is joining still. Okay. So clear. Okay. Now, once you know this equation, what you should remember is, okay. Now Q I can easily find if I know mH, Cph, and temperature. Temperature can be measured by thermocouple or thermometer. Okay. Specific heat generally will be no mass flow rate I can calculate. Now area also I can measure. Delta Tm also I can measure. This we have a derivation, we will see. Now what is very important is how to find out overall heat transfer coefficient. Okay, so we will see that now, how to find out overall heat transfer coefficient. So now since there are many types of heat exchanger, okay, but we will focus only on the double pipe heat exchanger because this is the basic heat exchanger setup. Now if you see one double pipe heat exchanger, this is you can see here, one pipe is inside, another pipe is outside. So inside the pipe hot fluid is flowing, outside the pipe cold fluid is flowing. Okay, now the very important portion here is this inner pipe, the surface of the inner pipe. So between this inner pipe, you can see this largest sketch has been shown. So this is the wall of the inner pipe. So inside we have hot fluid, outside we have cold fluid. So there is a heat exchange between hot fluid and cold fluid. Okay. Now what are the different type of heat transfer is taking place? Convection, conduction, and radiation. From the hot fluid to the wall, what type of heat exchange, heat flow it is?
Convection.
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 Okay. Hot fluid to the surface. Through the wall, what is the heat flow?
Conduction.
From the outer wall to the cold fluid?
Convection.
So there are three type of heat: convection, conduction, and convection. Okay. Now let us take Ti is the inner temperature, and T1 and T2 are the wall temperature. T0 is the outer temperature. Okay. And let us take Hi and H0 are the heat transfer coefficient. A and A0 are the area. Now how many thermal resistance you will get? How many resistance you will get? Three thermal resistance you will get. Okay, the first one is for a convection, so it is Ri 1 by Hi into A. Second one is for a conduction, R of the wall. Third one is for a again convection, R naught. Okay, so therefore, what is the overall heat transfer coefficient? So if you see here, for a cylinder and sphere, we can take two overall heat transfer coefficient based on inner area or outer area. Both are possible. And this equation we have studied in the first module, first unit, right? UiAi is also equal to U naught A naught is equal to 1 by summation of total resistance. So how many resistance we have here?
3.
3 resistance. 1 by HIAI, R of the wall, 1 by H naught A naught. Okay. Now how to find out R of the wall? What is the thermal resistance of the wall? Can you tell which formula?
Q by T.
Resistance we have thermal resistance 3 formula. L by Ka we have.
Oh, those.
Those.
L by K is
One by
conduction
H.
only.
L by Ka, or we have ln R naught by Ri by 2 by K.
For cylinders,
See, this wall, is it a plain wall or a cylinder?
it's a hollow cylinder.
Cylinder.
It's a hollow cylinder. So for a cylinder, the thermal resistance is given by this equation. Correct. So you have to remember this. Thermal resistance of the wall is given by ln of R naught by Ri 2 pi Kl. Where what is this R naught? R naught is the outer radius. So this sketch, second sketch, if you see here, the D naught and Di are the outer and inner diameter of this inner cylinder. Correct? No, inner cylinder. K is the thermal conductivity of this material. Okay. Now generally what is done in heat exchanger is the inner tube material, generally it is very thin. They will not make much thick. Why? I think if the thickness is more, what happens? If L is more, what happens to resistance?
Resistance more.
Yeah,
Less.
resistance.
More.
If L,
If L is more, R decreases.
sorry, L is the length, not the length I am telling. I am talking about thickness. Thickness is more means R naught is more.
Yes.
Correct. If R
resistance
naught and
will be
Ri,
more.
if difference is too much, resistance is very high. Okay. So generally what they will do is the outer and inner diameter are nearly equal. They will take very small thickness, right? So if the thickness is very small, then resistance is very small. And one more thing is thermal conductivity. Generally, the material used for inner pipe is of very good thermal conductivity. Generally, steel or aluminium they use. Okay. So if K is very high, what happens? Resistance will be
Less.
more or less.
Less.
Will be less. Okay. Our main aim is to keep resistance as low as possible. So therefore, generally what happens is in the problem, sometimes they may not mention the R naught and Ri. Okay. So what you can do, you can simply neglect here. Even if it is given, this will be very small value. Okay. Yes. But what is very important is Hi and H naught, inner convection resistance and outer. It cannot be neglected. Clear? So this is how we can find out overall heat transfer coefficient. Right. Okay. Now we will see. So there are 3 resistance in a normal heat exchanger. Okay. Now we will study. Now overall heat transfer coefficient. Some of the standard data is also provided. This is available in data handbook. Okay. So if Hi and H naught are also not given, you can take from data handbook these values. That depends upon based on what type of fluid is used. Okay. For example, water to water heat exchanger. Both hot and cold fluid, if it is water, overall heat transfer coefficient is in this range. Okay. Water to oil, this one. Water to gasoline, this one. Okay. Then generally we use steam condenser. Correct. So in steam condenser, you can see it has got very high overall heat transfer coefficient. Now one question is for a heat exchanger, whether overall heat transfer coefficient should be high or low. That is the question. What is desired?
High.
It should be
It
high.
should be very high.
very high, as high as possible. Okay, now that value depends upon what type of fluid you use, right? So most of the heat exchangers will have steam as a working fluid because it can carry large amount of heat. Okay, steam or water. So that is one reason. Now these values are available in data handbook also. Okay, now we will come to the last topic of today's lecture, that is fouling, right? Now what do you mean by fouling? I think you also know in MRPL or MCF or in any power plant, generally they shut down the power plant either maybe 1 week or 2 week or 3 week, correct? No?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What is the reason for this shutdown? What they will do during the shutdown?
Maintenance to
Maintenance.
reduce the heat
Okay.
inside.
Correct. Even you take an example of boiler. Boiler is a heat exchanger. Correct. Even boiler they will shut down. Generally they have one alternate boiler. 2 boilers they will use. One they will run, and one is shut down. Another they will use. During shutdown, what they do? Maintenance. What they do? They do cleaning. Okay. Now what is this cleaning? What they will do in cleaning? That is what. Yeah. Clean the
Scales.
correct pipes. Correct. No, most of the pipes, when you use it for a long time, their surface become dirty. Correct. That is what fouling phenomenon explained here. Okay, so fouling is a phenomenon where surface of the heat exchanger becomes dirty, and the reason for dirty may be scaling, deposits, or corrosion. Okay, now what is the effect of, can you allow the surface to become dirty? Can you run the heat exchanger with the dirty surface?
No.
No. What will happen? What is the effect of become dirty?
Resistance will be more.
Correct. So if you keep the surface dirty, it will add as a resistance for heat exchangers. Okay, resistance for heat transfer. So for the efficiency of the heat exchanger will reduce. So the main effect of fouling is it reduces heat transfer coefficient since the scale of a resistance. The reason for fouling are many. It may be scaling or precipitation, or deposit of finely divided particle, or even the chemical reaction. The corrosion may be one more reason. Attachment of algae or biological material. Okay, and crystallization of surfaces due to subcooling. Okay, this is possible in refrigeration and all when the cooling is very high. So many reasons are there. Correct. See, this figure shows how the pipe looks after the long run. Okay, this figure is taken from one of the picture. This is from a Babcock's and Wilcox boiler. Okay, so it shows precipitation fouling of ash particles on superheater tubes. So this is the outside surface of the tube. Inside water is flowing, outside the hot gases, and you can see ash deposited. So if you allow the heat exchanger to run with this much precipitation, you can see how much heat has been lost. Correct. So therefore, the whatever resistance I calculated, no, previous, so I cannot use the same resistance. This is another sketch which is shown here. Now just you see the inside pipe where hot fluid is flowing, and this is the cross section of the inner pipe, and you can see this precipitation happens both on inner surface and outer surface. Correct. No, this is the inner layer falling, this is the outer layer falling. So what you can see here, outer layer which I can clean, but inner layer it is difficult. Okay, so this is the tube wall. So therefore on both the surfaces, inner and outer surfaces, this scaling or precipitation happens. So this will add to the resistance. So now what I should do is I should consider this resistance in the overall heat transfer resistance. Correct. If you see the previous sketch, correct. See here I have taken only 3 resistance. One is convection, conduction, convection. But if precipitation occurs, how many resistance I should consider here? Can anyone tell?
One more will be there.
One more or 2 more?
One due to precipitation and
how many surfaces here get fouled?
two
Two
surfaces.
surfaces.
Okay.
Correct. No, inner surface and outer surface. So therefore, one inner surface there is a resistance, one more is outer surface, one more resistance. Okay. Yes. Now, how to calculate this fouling resistance? So, resistance offered by fouling is called fouling resistance. That is calculated based on fouling factor. Okay. See, this is the expression for fouling factor RF. Now, how they generally calculate is first, when the heat exchanger is very new, they calculate the heat exchanger overall heat transfer coefficient, that is called U clean. Okay, then after some time, after maybe 1 month or 2 month run, they again calculate heat exchanger overall heat transfer coefficient. The difference between 1 by U dirty and 1 by U clean will be fouling factor. This is an experimental method. Okay, now if you divide this fouling factor by area, what you get is called fouling resistance. So this is done experimentally, and these fouling factor values are available for different materials. It is available in data handbook. So what happens to now my overall overall resistance? How many resistance will get added? If you see here, 1 by HI is convection. Now RF by A, what is this? RF by A.
Internal surface.
This is the fouling resistance at inner surface. Okay, and RF naught by A naught, what is this? This is fouling resistance
External.
at outer surface. Okay, so therefore, in addition to 3 resistance, 1 by HI AI plus resistance of the wall plus outer convection, we need to consider 2 more resistance, RFI and RF naught. Okay, so whenever you solve any problem on the heat exchanger, if they give fouling factor, we should add 2 resistance. Okay, if fouling factor is not mentioned in the problem, you can neglect. Okay, you can neglect. So this is the effect of fouling. So therefore, any heat exchanger, if you take, it has to be periodically maintained. If it is not periodically maintained, the rate of heat exchange will drop. If the heat exchange drops, what does it mean? It is nothing but the fuel what you are giving, that is also being wasted. Okay, so it is a loss of efficiency of the heat exchanger, loss of the efficiency of the power plant. Therefore, even our air conditioning system, refrigerators need to be properly maintained. Okay, yeah. Now, in order to measure these fouling factor, nowadays we have infrared imaging technique, and lot of advanced techniques are available. Okay, so without opening the heat exchanger, you can measure how much precipitation or how much fouling has happened. So this is used in preventive maintenance. Okay, so most of the power plants, all thermal power plants, all big power plants, they use these techniques. So clear? So this is called fouling factor, fouling phenomenon.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So with this, we have come to the end of the first lecture. So let us just recall. So we have gone through the syllabus. 2 units we have under module 5, heat exchanger and boiling and condensation. Okay, so we are going through heat exchanger now, and we have classified heat exchanger based on various conditions. Okay, then we have seen what do you mean by overall heat transfer coefficient, and finally what is fouling factor and how it affects on the resistance. Yeah, if you have any doubt, I can clear.
Sir,
Yeah,
this like you said, right? Without actually opening the pipes, we will be able to thermally sense it.
yeah.
Where we have those defects and all. What is
Yeah.
that field called? Like those techniques come under which field?
Those techniques comes under testing. For example, I think non-destructive testing you have, no, NDT.
Okay, okay, okay.
So NDT is one of the method here. So without touching, you can measure how much surface has been damaged.
Okay,
So
sir. Okay.
there are many techniques available.
Uh-huh.
Actually, a lot of projects and research is going on in that area. Okay.
That was interesting when you said, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, one of my student, he did MTech in thermal engineering from KLE Hubli, right? His project was in NTPC. Okay.
Okay,
And in NTPC, their main work was on this, measuring fouling factor, fouling resistance, using different
Okay,
techniques. Using different techniques. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So with this, we will conclude today's presentation. Yeah. So before you go, I will call
sir.
attendance. So don't leave.